afternoon. This is Jen Bonnett with the Creative Coast. And today's lunchtime topic is ecosystem building. So I'm gonna give an overview of what ecosystem building is, and then I'm actually gonna kind of grade where we're at in Savannah currently, but also tell you how you can get engaged to help us on this journey. And as well as share some really interesting, my view of the future, which is very optimistic. And I think we're really at a real turning point in the technology ecosystem for Savannah, Georgia. So again, I am Jen Bonnett. I am the executive director of the Creative Coast. I call recovering because I don't actually do entrepreneurial activity today. So I'm a serial tech entrepreneur that right now is giving back to the community and having an impact through helping other tech entrepreneurs grow successful businesses. I've co-founded a bunch of companies. I've been parts of companies that have raised angel and venture capital, a lot of angel and venture capital. I've had 3 successful exits. Prior to relocating to Savannah, I ran the state's incubator at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, grew that from 19 companies to 90 companies co-located with 180 in the virtual program. And I am here in Savannah, Georgia, and have been for the last 2.5 years almost, really trying to focus on how do I catalyze the community. And I play 2 roles. One is Vice President of Innovation and Entrepreneurship with SEDA, Savannah Economic Development Authority, and I'm Executive Director of the Creative Coast. Those 2 roles kind of work hand in hand, at least for the time being. Eventually, both roles will require full-time people, but the role for the SEDA is recruiting technology companies to the region, and now technology workers to the region as part of the initiatives that I've started in the last year. And then the Creative Coast is really supporting those folks once they're here, or supporting the folks that are already here through more of an economic gardening activities. We're going to talk a lot about that today. For those of you that are interested, this is me circa 2001 in People magazine. So I was one of the first female chief technology officers of a venture-backed company back in the day. Ecosystem building. So kind of talking about it, ecosystem building is different than economic development. So I sometimes, the way I think about building a community is different than the way my counterparts at SEDA think. And so it is a little different. I will never call myself an economic developer. I'm not an economic developer. I'm an ecosystem builder. And what that really means is that I am looking to try and put together all the component pieces of an ecosystem that will make us successful. And there is actually a book about this called Startup Communities by Brad Feld, and it was just actually recently updated this summer with a new version of it. And it's really, how do you build an entrepreneurial ecosystem in your community? And I got somebody in the waiting room and I can't get to them. Hold on a minute. It is kind of a guide, and it's really based on Brad Feld and David Cohen's journey when they moved to Boulder, Colorado after 9/11. So the story goes that Brad and David were on opposite parts of the country from where they lived when the World Trade Center was hit. And they got stuck in different cities. I think they both got stuck in New York. They were from California, and they couldn't get back. They couldn't fly, so they drove a car across the country together. And Brad is the founder of the Founder Group, which is an investment VC firm. And David Cohen is the founder of TechStars, one of the kind of world-renowned accelerator programs. And they drove through Boulder, Colorado, fell in love, and decided to move to Boulder, Colorado. And then they focused for the last 20 years on how to make Boulder, Colorado an amazing community for tech entrepreneurs. And some of the premises are everyone's welcome, right? It's an active community that's engaged, and everyone is welcome, right? It's inclusive. That there are leaders and feeders. It has to be led by entrepreneurs. And then the feeders are universities, chambers, economic development authorities, and nonprofits, like the Creative Coast. I kind of wear a little bit of both hats because of my entrepreneurship background. I can kind of play in the leaders category, but most of the organizations that I actually work with are feeders today, right? You have to have a long-term view. You have to wake up every day and say, okay, this is a long-term play. Everything doesn't happen overnight. I'm going to wake up every day for the next 20 years to create the community that we want to create. I already talked a little bit about open, collaborative, inclusive. All are welcome, active, engaged. So that means people are participating, right? Lots of people are coming to lots of different things to participate and make the community better. And then there has to be this give before you get attitude, right? So it's how much can I give to this community, with the hope that sometime that there's some payback on that, but it's not what am I getting from this? It's how can I contribute to this community? And that's some of the principles within this book. If you're interested, I definitely recommend downloading the book. It's an easy read, it's a fun read, and it talks about the creation of Boulder as a tech capital. And when I think about, my time here in Savannah, that is my inspiration, right? Certainly Chattanooga, Boulder, and Charleston are cities that since, say 2001 have blossomed into tech ecosystems, but they're smaller. They're not San Francisco. They're not New York. They're not Austin, Texas. So it gives me hope that we can do the same thing in Savannah. Boulder in particular, there's this playbook, the Startup Communities book that we can follow, but also Boulder has a lot of similar assets to Savannah, Georgia. Boulder has a really high quality of life, right? Just like Savannah, Georgia, right? Theirs is around mountains, ours is more around water. Boulder has about 350,000 people in the MSA. We're just under that. And then Boulder has about 55,000 students in their community, I guess during normal times. Who knows whether they're there during COVID-19. We have around 60,000 students. So I think, if you look at that, we have the assets to be, America's startup capital, like Boulder is or was, and we have that opportunity. So that's my inspiration. That's my aspiration in what I do here in Savannah. We're not there yet, but we're working on it. And how do we do that, right? So we focus on community, and these are the things that are wide open, right? And this is where I spent a lot of time with the Creative Coast, with Kate's assistants, other people, and we're thinking about how do we build community, and that's these events that are open to the public. Anybody's welcome, right? And it's meetups, right? Any tech meetup that wants to meet in town, I'll give them space, right, for free. It's our Entrepreneurs Night where we're talking about the story of our successful entrepreneurs in town. It's office hours, it's She Hustles, it's the lunchtime topics when we can be in, well, I guess even now. It's harder when we're not in person, but we've got 1 million cups that we did put on hiatus, but hopefully it'll come back at some point in the future. We've got Geekend and /Grit, the Grit conference. And so, all of these things are about bringing people together. You get smart, passionate people in the room together and magic happens, regardless of the topic. So this is really about how do we build community is kind of phase one is the way I think about it. And how much activity can we have around that? We have strong partnerships in this area, right? This is Tech SAV and some of the other organizations that we work with that are all about building community. Our Creative Coast community is specifically this intersection of creatives and technologies and entrepreneurs that we're focused on. The next kind of phase after that is a little bit of curation, right? And this starts to get things by invite only, right? We're not 100% there, but we're kind of starting to get there, right? This is things where like people opt into the Idea Accelerator Bootcamp and a smaller group of folks go through there. The biz pitch that we're doing in partnership with SCORE is an opportunity for us to kind of see the best quote unquote startups in town, right? We're doing a lot of coaching in partnership with the ATDC. We have Startup Stage, which was part of Geekend and will be part of Grit in the future. So we've got 2 different pitch opportunities. And then one of the things that I've been wanting to do, but kind of got delayed because of COVID-19, was this idea of a invite-only entrepreneurs roundtable for kind of the entrepreneurs that have hit a certain stage in their growth. And so that's part of this community building curation. And then lastly, the other big thing that we talk about is this connection to connections, right? And that's a lot of my role is making connections to capital, to customers, and to talent, right? Startups need talent first and foremost, right? And then secondarily, they're going to need a runway. They're going to need money. There's two ways to get money. There's investors or customers. Customers is the best way to get money. And then, investors is obviously another option for a lot of tech companies. And part of the job is connecting people to those things. So that's kind of an overview of what we're doing right now. But if you really want to look at an ecosystem as kind of scientifically would look at it, is this is actually a diagram from the I think it's World Bank, from World Bank from a few years ago, and it describes the different components of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, from markets to culture to regulatory and infrastructure, education and training, human capital / workforce, funding, and support mechanisms. And I'm going to go through each section of these and give you an assessment of where I think Savannah's at today. I was trying to be fair and not too hard on us, but it comes off a little harsh sometimes, so sorry. So markets, right? And actually this is changing, right? So for most ecosystems, startup ecosystems, you want a strong local market, right? As well as the opportunity to go after foreign markets. I'm giving us a B. I would say there's more that we could do, and the reason I gave us a B is we have easy access to the global market through the port and the World Trade Center. Our local market has actually become less important for technology startups, right? And that's my specialty, right? We're trying to create a creative tech economy. In a pandemic, local customers for tech companies is less important than it used to be. Since everybody's selling on Zoom, everybody's communicating on Zoom, everyone's working from their home, having strong interactions with your local market is less important today than it was 8 months ago for tech companies. A B, I'm also giving, I guess probably most of the B comes from our local market could be more engaged with the startup community. And what I mean by that is the Gulfstreams, the JCBs, the hospitals, the larger employers in town could be more open to working with startups, right? And so, in blue, I've just added here some things that we're working on, right? So I see we're a B today, but we have a huge opportunity specifically especially in logistics right now, because that's been a main focus of ours with the Logistics Tech Corridor, is this Logistics Innovation Leadership Council is comprised of C-suite executives from bigger companies in the region or within the state that are focused on logistics and advanced manufacturing. And their entire purpose of that council is to help engage with innovation and startup activity. So as that organization kind of gets into the groove of its role, it was only started in December of 2019. So it's a new organization. It's only met twice. But I think as that organization gets into the sweet spot of why it exists, we will see more doors open to startups within the logistics and advanced manufacturing companies in town. So ultimately, I'm very optimistic in this space. Culture. This is tolerance of risk, preference of self-employment, success stories, research culture, positive image of entrepreneurship, and a celebration of innovation. Savannah definitely has a preference for self-employment and a positive image of entrepreneurship. so many people actually have to create their own jobs to make a good living in Savannah, because there's a lack of high wage jobs generally in Savannah. So if you really want that quality of life, you actually have to pursue this opportunity for yourself. I will say that there are limited role models. So we don't have a lot of successful entrepreneurs that are telling their stories and in giving back to the community in some manner or format, right? We have a very limited research culture. I think that is changing. I've had conversations this week with both Savannah State University and Georgia Southern University about the idea of research and commercialization of research. So I think there'll be more of that in the future. And there's certainly a limited tolerance for risk and failure. That's not unusual. I find that's typical of the Southeast. We're not California or New York, where they're used to failing every day, and that's okay. There is a perceived issue around risk and failure. We don't really celebrate innovation. So we have a lot of cool things going on and a lot of cool companies, but nobody talks about it. And then we have this concept of Slovana. So, I actually are giving us a C- in this today. Okay. That being said, I think we're positioned and to do some fun things in the future, right? And so I think we need more of our entrepreneurs that have had success to give back and tell their stories, and that's why Creative Coast, when I came to town, launched Entrepreneurs Night, where we've been videoing the story of those successful entrepreneurs. And the Creative Coast, I see becoming the storyteller of this, and we have to do more around. We have to do more around celebrating success and also talking about failure, right? Failure is a really good thing. I talked to who was I talking to? So I was talking to a fund manager out of New York yesterday. Right, and he's the fund manager that will help me with the bridge fund moving forward. Why do all these people come late? So he's going to help me with the bridge fund moving forward, and one of his things is he likes to invest in entrepreneurs that have failed because they've learned from that. And so I think we have to learn to do that. And then, of course, one of the big things that I've been wanting to do at the Creative Coast since I got back to town is really relaunch the Innovation Awards. And for anybody that was here about 10 years ago, they literally closed down Broughton, had a night where people got all dressed up and went to the theater right there on Broughton that's owned by SCAD, and we give out awards to companies and or projects and or activities in the schools that were innovative. And I'd like to see us reintroduce that when we can get back to in-person events. We have work to do on our culture. And a lot of this is from an individual perspective. We have to be more open to risk. We have to be more open to failure. We have to encourage people to take bigger risks and think big. The next one was regulatory framework and infrastructure. This is around tax incentives, access to transportation, access to basic infrastructure, business-friendly legislation, and access to telecommunications. I gave us a B. The state is the #1 state for business for something like 10 years in a row for a reason. They do amazing incentives and have amazing pro-business policies at the state level. SEDA has significant benefits for startups that scale and or move here, right? So, but they have to be scaling. If you create less than 5 jobs in a given year, you're not scaling, and SEDA doesn't really have anything for you. So it's literally about growth. We need you to grow larger companies. We do have a transportation issue, right? If you are not in a downtown region, CAT is really difficult, right? I've heard stories of a young intern that was living out on Wilmington and working for one of the companies in the Novel Co-work building that I worked for as an intern during the summer. And it took her an hour and a half to take a bus to work every day, every morning, because of this. She had to go some strange route, right? There was no direct route for her to come downtown, and she was all over the place. Kat's working on it, from my understanding. I have not been all that involved. We also have a perceived issue around telecommunications. We have this perceived issue that you can't get fiber. I'm positive that there are probably problems from a residential perspective around telecommunications. That is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about ability to get fiber to your office. And that is a perceived issue. There was a study done by the county and by the city a couple of years ago that basically said you couldn't get fiber, and it was a false study. That whoever they paid to do it took the money and did a cookie cutter report. The truth is, there's a recent study out of the state. We're very well positioned with our fiber, and especially due in some ways because of local providers. So Sumetsu in Hargray will step in and get you what you need from a throughput perspective if you're a business anywhere in town. And then basic infrastructure is good. We have access to it. We have access to the telecommunications. And again, I'm talking from a business perspective. So for those, in outlying areas, or unfortunately those maybe below the poverty line that don't have internet at home, I know that's a struggle. I'm not kidding myself about that, but I am focused on the businesses. And, so what do we need? We need an improved CAT. We need to put to bed the idea that we have a poor telecommunications infrastructure, at least from a company perspective. And some of those are CAT is probably a change in routes, which they tried to do this past year and had to go back to the drawing board. So hopefully that's coming. The rest is partially about telling the story. Education and training, right? Again, I gave us B. We have some perceived challenges in K through 12. I put perceived because I'm not sure our situation is as dire as most people seem to feel. Now, I don't have kids, so I have a different view of the world. But from my understanding, from talking to multiple high schools, public high schools in Savannah, Georgia, every single child that comes through 9th grade, regardless of whether they're in the advanced classes or not, is learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And so they are getting decent STEM training from my perspective of everyone. The more advanced classes get Java, not JavaScript, but Java. So that's pretty serious. I think our university system is great. I think we've, the local, certainly Georgia Southern, Armstrong and Georgia Southern and Savannah State have struggled over the last, I'll say 5 years due to lack of leadership. But I've, spent a lot of time with both presidents at this time, and I am really optimistic about the future because of the leadership shown by those presidents already in their short tenure in their positions. And then, of course, SCAD is an amazing asset for our city. All three have programs for entrepreneurship. All three are teaching, business model canvas, design thinking. And ultimately, I'm really optimistic about the universities. And then I think, our entrepreneurship training is good. I think it's really good, actually. Creative Coast, SBDC, I saw Liz on the line, SCORE, SBAC, ATDC in the region, probably others. I actually believe our issue is not with the training, but lack of people participating in that training. So I think there's a lot of people that either aren't finding out about our programs that should, or we just need more people to get engaged, right? And so I think this is a storytelling opportunity, both around K through 12 and then all the opportunities in entrepreneurial education. And so I think, we're good. I think we just need more people to get engaged. Let's see. Next is human capital and workforce. So management talent, technical talent, entrepreneurial experience, outsourcing, immigration workforce. Right, so we're doing some really good stuff here. We have really good executive talent. Be surprised how many people have reached out in the last 6 months that they used to travel for a living. They live in Savannah and they're exec and their companies in New York or DC, and they used to fly out every Monday morning and fly back every Friday or Thursday night, and they didn't really engage in the community here, but now that they're working remote, they want to get engaged. So there's really some amazing executive talent here. We have tremendous access to young talent out of the university system, local. We do not have a middle tier technology talent. We have very few people that have technical skills that have 3 to 10 years experience. We have really limited access to outsourcing and immigration workforce, right? There is no specialty staffing firm in technology or creative services in the Savannah region. And that just blows me away, because that's going to be a necessary component as we grow the ecosystem. There's going to be, staffing firms that specialize in the industries that we're focused on. And there is almost no immigration workforce, right? Since I got here in 2.5 years, not a single person has asked me how to go about getting an H-1B visa, which was something that I had to answer almost every week in Atlanta. And then we do have limited entrepreneurial company experience. I struggle a little bit with that because I think we have a lot of entrepreneurial company experience. We have a limited tech entrepreneurial experience, and we possibly are just missing the component of them being ready to give back to the community. And then, of course, we have this issue of Savannah. I actually have a CEO that's growing a large business here, and we were talking one day, and he's like, it's not great. I'm gonna have to hire twice as many people because people in Savannah don't actually want to work. Even if I pay them 2 to 3 times the average county wage, they just don't really want to work. So I'm gonna have to hire twice as many people. That's not what we need. So, we've introduced remote worker incentives to try and attract tech talent here, right? So this is if you're a tech worker and you can work anywhere, #choose Savannah, move here, and SEDA will reimburse up to $2,000 of your $2,000 of your relocation costs. We need to actively recruit Black, Hispanic, and immigrants into our tech workforce. My site visit with an entrepreneur out of Chicago this week was part of that. He's a Black entrepreneur and really into Black tech workforce and companies, and I think he's going to be a huge proponent in helping us achieve this in this area. And we need to actively recruit entrepreneurs from other places that want a high quality life and maybe want to move their business or be in a position to give back here. And so those are some things that we can do. Support mechanisms, give us a seat. There's lots of law firms, lots of accountants. We've got SCORE, SBDC, Creative Coast, ATDC that can help. We have 0 incubators or true accelerators today. I'm going to talk about that at the end of the presentation. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs that just seem to have checked out. They're doing their thing and they're not here. They're not into being a part of the community. And that's a problem, right? We need a strong connected community. So, the entrepreneurs that are heads down building their business and don't come to any event or don't, give back in some meeting format or work with younger entrepreneurs or seek the counsel of other entrepreneurs is actually negatively impacting our community, our ability to build a strong, vibrant ecosystem. Right, and so we need an incubator or accelerator, and it's part of the logistics tech corridor plan that we've been working on, and it's pretty exciting. So I think that'll happen. We also need more of our entrepreneurs to be engaged in the community, right? We need them to actually come to events, get on Zoom calls. When we get back in person, participate on a regular basis. They'll come if I ask. Like a seasoned entrepreneur will come to an event if I personally ask, but we have to move past that. They need to want to be involved. I think, a lot of our entrepreneurs are thinking small and they need to think bigger, if we're really going to swing for the fences. And then, people have to be willing to give back. Right, that's kind of the whole ecosystem, that circular thing. I grow something, I get feedback from people, they help me on my journey. When I get to the other side, I help other people along the journey. And I don't see that happening as much as it could. It does happen, Not saying it doesn't, but it doesn't happen as much as it could in our community. Funding and finance, a D, borderline F. We have lots of high net worth individuals in town, but we have zero private equity, we have zero capital, we have very limited angel investors. There is Ariel Southeast Angel Partners and some individuals that do. We do have access to debt via the SBAC and banks, but ultimately we're a D, right? And so one of the things that we did through the Creative Coast was do a grant with the FDA or EDA to launch the bridge fund. We had to put that on hold due to COVID-19, trying to raise $3+ million in the middle of the market crash at the beginning of March in COVID-19, not knowing how angels and high net worth individuals respond to the ask. We put it on hold. I had a meeting with the fund manager yesterday, so we're getting ready to kick that back off. But the idea around the bridge fund is to help ensure that that investors get a return on investment by investing in a fund that invests in 30-ish companies, right? So instead of putting their money into one company, they put the money into the fund, and then we divide the fund out amongst 30 companies, and therefore we have a stronger ability to ensure some sort of return on investment. But while building that fund, we'll be able to build a stronger angel community, because we'll be just talking about angel investing and educating a lot of high net worth individuals about why they should be angel investors and how we can protect their interests while they do so by it's kind of Moneyball for startups. I mean, the American Angel Association has done statistics, and if you make less than 20 startup investments, odds are you're going to lose money. So that's where the 30 number comes from, right? And then right now, what we do is we leverage my relationships in Atlanta for true access to venture and private equity. So we do have a company in town right now. We're raising a $10 million Series A, and it will likely come from one of my venture capital friends in Atlanta, Georgia, that I introduced them to and made that connection, and they've been working with. And so, I have that access to venture and private equity, especially in Atlanta, but also some contacts in New York and San Francisco. So while we build our local community, we do have access to these communities that have more money. And that's kind of the plan right now, to try and solve our challenges around funding and finance. Overall, I actually found this little grade thing on the website. So I've graded us, all of our grades were a C+. We're about a C+, right? So that being said, how can you help, right? So these are just some things from all of those slides together, kind of overarching themes, right? We need to engage with the larger corporations in town, and we need them to be engaged and open to working with startups. I've started that work through the logistics tech corridor work, and hopefully we'll continue that, but we need corporate leaders in the hospitals and anybody that could be first customer. We need those larger companies to be thinking about engaging with our startup community and being open to working with our startup community and universities for research in order to really thrive. We need to be better about celebration, innovation, success, and failure, right? And the failure is key, right? A lot of people are going to fail and then on their first try and come back swinging out, hit a home run on the second. So we need to be better about celebrating those things. We need more experienced entrepreneurs to get involved and give back to the community. And I'm starting to see this in some cases. And again, certainly there are some people that I can ask and they will get engaged, but I shouldn't have to ask is the problem. They should, if they want to build a thriving tech startup ecosystem, that has to be part of the model, is giving back. We need to address our transportation and telecom issues in quotes, because in some cases they're real, in some cases they're perceived, but either way we need to address them. We need to address our education issues. Again, whether they're real or perceived, we need to solve some of those problems. We need to get over Savannah. Savannah is not helping us. It's an old story. Lots of people I know do not have a Savannah. In fact, the most successful people I know in town do not have a Savannah mentality. So we need to move past that. We need to have an innovation mindset and a creative mindset, and we need to move faster, because we are not on most of our entrepreneurs are not going to compete in a local market where Savannah might be okay. Most of our tech entrepreneurs and creative entrepreneurs are going to play on a global stage. And if your competitors in Austin or San Francisco, when you're moving at Savannah pace, you will fail. So we need to get out of that. We need our entrepreneurs to think really big and swing for the fences, right? We needed them to want to grow a business that deserves capital, right? Most of the startups I talk to in town would like to raise capital, but they're not building a business that is fundable. So we need them to think bigger and build a business that is fundable. And then we need active angel investors. We need to activate the high net worth individuals to be willing to put a small percentage of their investment dollars into startups. And so these are things that we as a community, as individuals in our community, can do to make our community stronger and better and move the needle. That was a lot. Now I'm going to share something that I probably shouldn't share because nobody knows any of this but me for the most part. And that is the promising future. And so, yeah, I stole this map off Shutterstock because I had to figure out how to talk about it. But, you know, the Creative Coast office is down at East Bryan, right kind of in the heart of the historic district. That arrow is probably a little bit off, but that's okay because I had to get all this stuff on here. So this is the stuff that is in the works that if people have talked to me about in less than the last 6 months that are generally being led by private individuals that want to do something meaningful around innovation, around doing something for the community, and around typically a specific industry, as you can see. So I'm going to start with the Creative Coast, right? The Creative Coast is downtown. We're focused on this intersection of creatives, technologists, entrepreneurs. We're running all these online lunchtime topics. We have She Hustles, we have Grit. I hope we continue and actually move more into the direction of telling the story of Savannah and telling the story of our successful entrepreneurs and possibly all these spaces and success and failure and celebrating all of that. Continue to do events, but also really focus on storytelling. And I hope we do more of that in the future. We are, obviously doing Entrepreneurs Night. We have one coming up next week, but let's do even more of that. About to be announced probably within the next couple of weeks is a future clean tech incubator that's going to launch on the way out towards the islands, all the way down President. And that's going to be a incubator space focused on the clean tech industry. So free to cheap office space to clean tech companies with mentoring and coaching. That's pretty much a done deal. The press release should be coming out in a couple of weeks. We have a future food incubator being launched by a couple of entrepreneurs in the Starland district. That is in the works. The property has been identified, and I believe a loan has been committed by a bank, but additional funding has been requested through the EDA through a grant fund that I supported them on. And so I think we'll see a future food incubator in the Starland area. And that will include ghost kitchens for food trucks or new restaurant ideas, but also a commercial kitchen for people that are building food product. Down on the south side, and we've got Savannah State University's ACE program. I put that on there especially because this Black tech founder that I'm working with is taking a role as the chairman of the board of the ACE program. So I expect to see the ACE program really revitalized through that relationship. The Black tech founder that I mentioned is going to open a minority tech incubator, probably around the MLK area. So there'll be that potential incubator. The Alderwoman Lanier has a vision for West Side Marketplace and incubator in the old Waterworks building. We have a entrepreneur out near the airfield that is interested in launching a veteran and military spouses incubator / innovation space that I met with yesterday. And then we have our logistics technology incubator somewhere on the way between downtown and the port that we're working on through the logistics tech corridor. And so this is kind of, these are all active projects that I'm working with entrepreneurs or organizations that are talking about doing these types of activities. You know, this doesn't even include big out in Hinesville and Georgia Southern University at Armstrong, right? Or no, sorry, out in Statesboro. This doesn't include any of the SCAD entrepreneurial activity. These are just new opportunities that are popping up that will change the future of our ecosystem if we're successful. If even two of these happen, you know, we're going to see a lot more entrepreneurial activity, and it's just such an exciting time. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but I'm feeling very optimistic about the future.